to class. Also, do we have any visiting Rotarians?
This one back here.
Visiting Rotarians. Oh.
President Jim, fellow Rotarians and guests, it's my honor to introduce from the Rotary Club of, in the category of, please welcome. I've done it a couple times.
Very good.
Haven't we all?
Any other visiting Rotarians? Okay, do we have any guests of Rotarians?
My guest today is my son, Evan Schweigerling.
Hello, Evan.
Evan, are you not the #1 son?
Not anymore. Heidi?
Good afternoon, President Jim and fellow Rotarians. I have with me Alan Hammond, our IT Director for the City of Pleasanton today.
Good afternoon, President Jim and Rotarians. So I have 4 guests today.
Wow.
So first, I'd like to introduce my wife, Nancy. My better half, keeps me in line, and an accomplished ukulele player. Secondly, want to introduce Mukesh Garg. Mukesh is Director of Software Development at Oracle, and a colleague and also my neighbor. And then thirdly, Jose Reynoso, who is a guest speaker. More about him in a couple of minutes. He is the Vice President at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And finally, Bronis Jasipinski, Chief Technical Officer at Lawrence Livermore Lab. We'll say a little bit more about him in a few minutes.
Welcome.
All right.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Mr. President, fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce Jen Oxy. She is the Development Director for Sunflower Hill. So we want to thank her and welcome her here. So, and also, I have the mic. There are flyers on your chairs for our next fundraiser for Sunflower Hill. Many of you know that Ricky and I serve on their board of directors. It's a really cool dinner at SkyTrack. All the tips go to Sunflower Hill, April 15th. Just scan the QR code and you can make reservations. So Ricky and I will be trying to pretend to be waiters that night. So hopefully you can attend. Let us know if you have any questions. Thanks very much, Mr. President. Welcome all of our visitors and visiting Rotarians. At this time, I'd like to ask,
One more.
Bill.
Bill, sorry, Bill.
President Jim and fellow Rotarians, I'm very pleased to introduce my daughter Linda and my son-in-law Steve, visiting with me from Seattle.
Well, welcome everyone, all visitors and guest Rotarians. And at this time, I would like to ask Clark Fan to come up and do our inspiration for today. Well, I say some of you may have heard President Jim call me Grandpa from time to time. And that's because our first grandchild is 18 months old. And my wife and I are thankful that we get to watch him during the day, 4 days a week. So it's a pretty big commitment. And tiring. But grandchildren make every day feel like a new adventure. Mom is a teacher at Walnut Grove, and on her way to school, she drops Tate off at 8 a.m. Every morning, Tate has a smile on his face as he lifted from his car seat and clutches his 2 favorite stuffed animals, Rory the lion and Paw the penguin. He smiles almost all the time, loves to punch buttons, turn lights on and off, and dance along with nursery rhyme music. His day with us is pretty simple: breakfast, playtime, nap, snacks, lunch, more playtime, stroll around the block, and then pick up after school. He walks and runs pretty good, but is still a little bit small to negotiate stairs on his own. He's gotten really good giving hugs and kisses. When he leaves each day, he waves goodbye and blows big kisses. Grandchildren are a reminder that the simple things in life bring the most joy. As we age, life does continue to get more complicated. We can't avoid that. However, it only takes a little effort to slow down and look for just a couple of simple things in the madness of each day and take a moment to smile. I'm grateful that tape triggers so many smiles and giggles for us throughout the day, but there's one simple thing for me that stands out above the rest. Walking up to the house each morning and we get to the front porch steps, he stops and reaches up to grab my hand for help. It's been said that a grandchild reaches up for your hand, they touch your heart, and I can verify that. But the point is, look for the little things. They will make you smile.
Thank you, Clark. How many grandparents in the house? How true. Thank you. Okay, we have a list of people that I need to call to make quick announcements. Sherry Simone, the diaper lady.
Yes. So I just want to show you what $150 buys you. There's, oh, hi, this is what $150 buys you. This is 596, if I added it right, diapers, 900 wipes. And I'm helping out Richard, who couldn't be here, he left, with the diaper drive. We are trying to collect more diapers than the Pleasanton North Club, and I know that we can do it. So last week when I looked around the room, you know, our demographic is, it is what it is. And I thought these guys are not gonna go buy diapers. So I threw it out there, if you give me the money, I will go buy diapers, and I collected $150, and this is what it got us. So I'd like to bring another stack next week. So if you would, and you want to donate, but you don't want to go to Costco, drop off some money with me. I actually was so proud of myself. I saw the receipt. I spent $147.01 out of my $150. So I know what the money gets us. So.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson.
We started the donation, so. All right, Roger, and thank you, Sherry, and thank you to Richard. Roger Emmett has a quick announcement about the poker club.
Thank you.
Poker club, we're a club now.
Thank you, President Jim. So our 10th annual poker tournament is on May 2nd, and
It's an event, not a poker tournament.
anyway,
For those of us who
So-
don't want tacos.
so anyway, we're gonna have some really good food, cocktails, and a lot of fun poker. We need players and we need sponsors, and President Jim told me I had to make it fast.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you. Thank you for everything you guys do. I'd like to ask Bill Burke to come make a presentation. Dr. Burke.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to invite my son-in-law, Steve, to join me. Raise your hand if you're a Paul Harris fellow. Thank you. That's what Rotary is all about. Those of you who have contributed over the years to gain that honor know that that money goes for worldwide efforts on the part of Rotary International. It's one of the key things that I'm so proud about in Rotary. It's my pleasure today to present my son-in-law with the Paul Harris Fellow. He will be number 6, I think, in the family that I've been able to do so. And I'm really proud of him. You know, some of you call me Lucky Bill. I don't know why, other than the fact that I won the lottery last week. But a very lucky thing happened to me 43 years ago, when Steve came into my life as I handed my daughter off to him at the wedding. This young man right here, and I say young because I can. He's a very, very special person. He's been a marvelous, marvelous husband for my daughter. More importantly, just a fabulous father for my 3 grandchildren in his family. I'm so proud of him and what he's accomplished. In Rotary, we like to say service above self. And this is the man who I've observed over the years as putting service above himself. And I'm very proud of that. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to present this to you, and you'll wear that proudly, I'm sure.
What's his name, Bill?
Pardon?
What's your son-in-law's name?
Steve, oh, pardon me, Steve LaPops.
Just looking at that is Gilbert. Just give me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Bill, and congratulations, Steve.
Thank you.
Steve Van Dorn, Sunflower Hill.
Oh, we
You already did it. Good.
Cross it off. Yes.
Ricky, new member presentation.
Mark Francis, come on down.
Where is this held now? Back at Brown, or Hotel.
So I get the privilege as the new member coordinator to welcome when we have a new member. And Mark Francis is, he's been actually a member for a while, but we just haven't had a chance to introduce him to the club. So I'm first gonna just ask him a couple questions, which he's prepared for, hopefully. Tell us a little bit about your family and such.
I was born an Air Force brat, and then have never been married ever since. So I've had to kind of pretend I have a family, and I actually do. I have a life partner. I've been together for 19 years, and her name's Julie, and I think many of you have already met her.
Okay, and about your employment, job situation.
Oh, so I own a company called Compliance International. We do.
I looked at, all right. There are medical.
I think everyone knows that Ricky was sick for the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that's
Freaking out.
or my
Good, good.
or my family story was so touching. I'm not sure.
Anything for attention, right?
Yeah. Fall down.
So I own Compliance International. We do regulatory compliance consulting for manufacturers of telecommunications equipment. And we also do testing with, so we have a test lab. And on the side, I do business development consulting.
Tell us a little bit about your hobbies and interests.
So I'm a skier, scuba diver, traveler, and love music. So
You guys love music. We've been to a couple concerts together. Okay, this is, well, sorry. Tell us maybe something about yourself, you know, by sharing with the club that's funny and or interesting about yourself.
I guess one interesting thing is I met my life partner in Saudi Arabia 40 years ago. She was a nurse there and I was working there as a subcontract negotiator. And we became good friends living in Saudi Arabia. She was visiting or working there as a expat from England. And it was a great opportunity to meet her. Finally connected almost 20 years later after we had both been through a couple of relationships. And then found that we came together first as friends again, and now more than friends, I would say. And I know some of you have had a chance to meet her. So I hope the rest of you do too.
Lastly, what area of service did you want to get involved in?
Yeah, I've been testing the waters already, so to speak. I joined the WASH committee and have been helping with that. I was involved in a water collecting project in the past. And so I thought that might be interesting, but I also joined the poker committee because I love Texas Hold'em. And I'm now shopping for wheelchairs for my mother. So I may look at the wheelchair committee too.
Which committee is your favorite?
Yours by far.
Well, Mark, here's your certificate of membership we want to give you. Here's your badge. Here's your first Rotary pin. And please give a warm welcome and round of applause for Mark Francis.
Thank you. Congratulations. And before I call Ginger up, I want to say hello to Eric Martin who's on the Zoom. And so is Ron, but he's here. Hi, Eric. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ginger Faith to come forward and talk about her trip to LA and the support she brought to victims down in the fire area.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name is Ginger Faith. I'm the former president of this club during COVID. And we came into a very interesting situation just a few months ago. I was due to go down to Los Angeles to visit a friend. And I called her because I knew she lived in Altadena. And when I called her, she picked up the phone and told me, Ginger, I'm watching my house burn down. So many things transpired from that point on, and this presentation is going to be a little bit about what happened. So thank you, Ricky. We do it.
In the Bays, Bob Riddell joining us live from Livermore. This is where a small caravan of donations just left for Southern California. And Bob, no surprise there that so many people are just outpouring with support there for people who lost everything in the fires.
You are correct. Good morning to Marcus. Yes, there's been a lot of support, especially here in the Tri-Valley. A local realtor from Livermore, where we're at right now, she organized this donation drive for her friend who lost her home in Altadena and for other people who were displaced during the fires in Southern California. That realtor here in Livermore, Ginger Faith, thought she might be able to fill one U-Haul truck with donations, but turns out she needed 2 box trucks. Seen here this morning before they left downtown Livermore for the Pasadena area, loaded with furniture, clothes, water, pet food, and other supplies. These are items that she and her friends collected during a last-minute donation drive over the weekend in Pleasanton. This is a drive that she advertised on social media. Ginger was expecting just a few things, not this kind of overwhelming response for her friend. What's her response been?
She, truthfully, overwhelmed. She was crying. And I think the most important thing is she said a few days ago, I was completely in shock and overwhelmed. And now I truly believe, I truly know what is most important. I truly know that there's been such an outpouring of love and support that there's absolutely nothing we won't be able to rebuild. She said, I'm absolutely confident that everything is going to be better than ever.
And this was the scene a few hours ago here in Livermore. There you can see Ginger and her friend driving the 2 box trucks for the long haul down I-5 to SoCal. Ginger tells us once they drop items for her friend, the biggest challenge is finding out where to take the rest of the stuff to help other people and their pets who've been displaced by these fires. Ginger is trying to find connections through the Rotary Club and other organizations. Reporting live here in downtown Livermore, Bob Riddell, NBC Bay Area News.
One of the first things I did when I found out about this is called it the next day. And I said, what can I do? I don't know what to say, Liddy. I don't know what to say. What can I do? And she said, well, lucky for me, I have a house because I just renovated a rental property. And so I'm going to move to Mid-City. I didn't have time to process the applications, but I don't have any furniture and I cannot even think about buying furniture right now. And so that got the ball started. And then I reached out to this organization, the Rotary. I called Jim and I said, you know, what can we do? And based on the fact that I was connected to Rotary, U-Haul donated 2 trucks. They only had 1 truck, but then we needed 2 trucks and they knew what we were doing. And so they ended up getting another truck. And then I went on to Facebook And I said, does anybody have anything? And then I started realizing that even though my friend had a home to go to, not everybody did. And so furniture was not really practical for everybody. I started asking for furniture and that wasn't practical. So I quickly switched and found out what do people actually need. And then my friend, who is a very powerful leader, this woman is amazing, but she was also devastated. She started reaching out to her community. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? She became a giver and a helper right away. And then through that, we started realizing what we needed, and then went out to Pleasanton Rants and Raves and Livermore Rants and Raves. And we started directing what it was that they really needed down in LA. We used Fred McAndrew's True Value Hardware right across the street as a drop-off point. She lost her house on Wednesday and I was on the truck that you just saw, this trucks by Monday. On Sunday, we had 2-hour drop-off. We filled up those 2 box trucks, 26 foot, those are the big ones, in 2 hours. And drove down to LA. And then the biggest question is people are saying, they're full, they have too many donations, you're never gonna be able to find a place to place them. But you can't think that way. You have to just do one step at a time and pray that you're gonna be guided in the right direction. And that's exactly what happened. So I reached out to a lot of people that I know in LA and I said, where's a good place to drop these off? And when I drove down to LA, I was in LA on Monday. We furnished her home in an hour. She was just blown away. She couldn't believe it. And I actually know, because I'm in the real estate field, I knew a state nurse who was staying with a beautiful furniture, cheap. So I grabbed a bunch of furniture and that's how we actually ended up really furnishing our home with really nice quality furniture. But then we brainstormed together on Tuesday morning. I woke up, I had 2 box trucks full of things. We had no idea where we were gonna bring them. And finally, somebody texted me and said, hey, the Santa Anita racetrack is taking donations. And so, yeah, this is this beautiful piece of furniture she got from Dora's Staging. Thanks for keeping on top of this.
Yeah, no worries.
Good.
I scrolled through all of them.
Okay, well, you scrolled through all of them already? Okay. So this is my friend. And but there are a couple of things I want to highlight. So if we could go back, I'm not sure where we are. Okay, that was the echo 1 minute? Okay, not a problem. Okay. Oh, I wanted to see the one with her and then Alberto.
You have to tell me which one you mean.
Go further deeper into it, to the end. Or to the end.
Wow.
Keep going. Keep going. This is okay, one more back.
Oh.
Okay, one more back. Okay, this was our team down in LA. This is the Santa Anita racetrack. And then one more. What we did was we connected Nitty, my friend, who became a community organizer right on the heels of this, with Alberto Fernandez. I think he's one more. He's the Los Angeles district governor. And I wanted to note, this is my friend, and that is a little thing from, who knows Gary Winter? Gary Winter, right? He's an artist from Pleasanton. He created these pins and they're called Sing from the Heart. So we wore these during the entire time, and I gave one to her, and then they're working together to help. Amazing work together. She's just going all out, and she is now becoming a community leader, helping people to, reestablish their lives in many, many, many ways. But she attributes the time that we spent together, the quick action, the support from Pleasanton, just the fact that we came all the way down to that. So one good deed, and then much of Southern California is going to be blessed because people here took that time to reach out to them.
Thank you, Ginger. And if anybody, there is still some funds needed just to support the trip down there, if you feel so moved. I'm gonna bring a check next week, and if you'd like to do likewise, please do. But thank you. Heidi. Hey. Okay, we'll introduce our speaker.
So we actually have two speakers today, so I'll just tell you a short story to get started here. So years ago, my wife and I and young son moved to Neuchâtel, Switzerland to work for Silicon Graphics, a technology company. It is there where I met Jose Reynoso, and we became colleagues and friends. After returning to the States, Jose eventually moved to the States, and our families have been friends for years. Jose is the vice president of high performance computing and artificial intelligence at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And Jose and his team built this machine, this largest, fastest computer in the world that you're about to hear about. So I want to thank Jose for being here today. And I also want to thank Jose for birthing this machine to help our country with research and security. So, I'd like to introduce our true guest speaker, Bronis Disipinski. So Bronis is Chief Technical Officer of Livermore Computing at the Lawrence Livermore National Labs here in Livermore. He has been a technology group leader at the lab for 20 years and has a PhD in computer science from the University of Virginia, and a bachelor's in math from the University of Chicago. Bronis, thank you so much for being here today. I'll turn it over to you, and we're anxious to hear your story about the El Capitan machine.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to tell you about what we've been building over at Lawrence Livermore.
Hold it up closer. Yeah.
Is it working?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm used to lavaliers.
Yeah.
All right, so to begin with, so the building a system of the size that we've built, it takes a tremendous amount of partnerships. So Jake mentioned Jose. There's been a large number of people from HP on site at the lab for several months. Actually, for about the last month and a half, we said most of you can go home, and now we just have their ongoing staff that's going to be supporting us for the next several years. So this is a picture of the first row of cabinets of the system. It's got this wonderful mural. If you see here in the middle, we have El Capitan. That's the California landmark for which the system is named. The picture was actually taken by a Lawrence Livermore retiree and his son, who went to Yosemite and hiked up to get this picture, because you've probably seen pictures of the Livermore Valley before. I imagine many of you from California have been to Yosemite, but normally the pictures put El Cap on one side of the picture, right? Whereas we wanted it focused in the middle. Anyway, so the system we built is #1 on the top 500, which is a list of the fastest computers in the world. It is based on running a particular application called high performance LinPack. We got a score of 1.74 exaflops on this system. So that's 1.74 floating point operation, quintillion floating point operations per second. So that's a lot. So for example, an example that I've heard is if you took a cell phone, it's about 2 teraflops. And so it would take about 1 million cell phones to equal the performance we get out of the system. All right. We didn't just deploy El Capitan. It is the world's #1 system. We also deployed some other systems, including, so El Capitan will eventually be a classified system. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But we also deployed a system that will stay on our unclassified network called Tom. All right, and so if you're again familiar with Yosemite, that's, Tuolumne Meadows is up a little bit higher. That is actually about a tenth of the size of El Cap. And we got a score of 208.1 petaflops, so 208, that's one decimal place less than anyway, so it ended up actually being rated as the 10th fastest computer. So we delivered quite a bit of capability to the lab in the last year. They use the world's first data center APU, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. I'll try not to dive too far into the technical details, but it's uses what's called an APU, and why we call it that I'll get to on the next slide. In addition, we have a novel storage device called the Rabbits. The Rabbits are something I will also again tell you about, but we call them a near node local storage system. And finally, unlike HPE's other systems that they've been delivering, we actually run Livermore's software stack, which features something that we call TOS, which is the TriLab operating system software, and the resource manager, the thing that schedules jobs onto the many processors in the system, is something we developed at Livermore called Flux. All right, so first I'll give you a little bit of background. So it's the El Capitan is the newest ASC ATS to be cited at LLNL, and it's the first NNSA exascale system. So lots of acronyms there because, hey, Livermore, it's a government-owned contractor-operated facility, so we have to have acronyms. So first of all, ASC is the Advanced Simulation and Computing Program. And so that's the part of the NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, that cites the big modeling and simulation computers that we do. So that tells you who they are. ATS is Advanced Technology Systems. So ASC actually cites two different kinds of systems in addition to these testbed systems. One is commodity technology systems. These are kind of basically Linux clusters. We're currently citing a bunch of CTS2 systems, and those are to Jose's disappointment, Dell, but hey. Anyway, so the advanced, and these are kind of workhorse systems that we deploy, run a lot of our workload, but the biggest systems we deploy, we call advanced technology systems. And the idea is that those not only push us out to new boundaries in terms of performance, but also allow us to push the boundaries of the kinds of technologies that we're deploying. All right, so we still have the previous ATS system at Livermore called Sierra. That's an IBM system. But anyway, so LCAP is out there. It's currently being used in early science runs. Later this month, we'll move it to our classified network, and it will soon be used in its production workload. So if you're not familiar, why do we build these big computers? So many years ago, we were starting the nuclear test ban treaty. All right. And so in order to allow us the nation to stop having to test nuclear weapons, we began, we shifted to only simulating them on big computers. And so over time, we've gotten so we can simulate the weapons with more and more fidelity. So these systems, there we go. These systems allow us to continue not having to perform underground tests. Anyway, before I get into what El Capitan is, I want to give you a little bit of the background on what it takes in order to deploy a very large computer. And the first thing is, what you may not realize is it takes a very large amount of infrastructure. So our computer facility, prior to planning for running exascale systems, we had the ability to have up to 45 megawatts of power delivered to our computer rooms. All right. Exascale systems were projected to be 20 megawatts per exaflop. All right, so in theory, we could have cited an exascale system there. El Capitan actually is a 35 megawatt system, so we have other systems on that floor. It wouldn't have worked. So what we ended up doing is having something we call the Exascale Computing Facility Modernization Project, and that took us from 45 megawatts up to 85 megawatts. So on our largest computer room floor, we have a few others. We now have an 85 megawatt facility, and it's a 48,000 square foot facility. We didn't have to increase the size of the facility, but we went from 10,000 tons of cooling to 28,000 tons of cooling. All right, because when you're doing calculations that fast, you're moving a lot of electrons, that creates a lot of heat, and you got to get that heat somewhere or else the silicon will melt. And, that's not good for the computer. Anyway, so we actually started this project in March of 2020, so right after the pandemic started, basically. Our facility team did an amazing job, worked through the pandemic, and delivered the improvements to the facility on time and under budget in May of 2022. All right, and so this is a picture of the result. These were our existing cooling towers. This is a whole bunch new area of electrical equipment, so a bunch of transformers and other stuff. And these are the new cooling towers. And so just to give you kind of an idea of the scale that we're talking about, first of all, this shows you the site prior to the project. These are the old cooling towers, and that's after. Over here is our actual building. We have office, 4-story office tower, and then 2-story computer room floor. All right. This is some of the transformers. So you can see the people there. They're very large. To really give you a sense of the size of this of the infrastructure we're talking about. These are the new cooling towers. And yes, these are people that are standing at the top of the towers. So they are very large. El Capitan is what we call warm water cooled. So that means that the water that we use to cool the system is not, we don't have chillers applied to it. It just goes through these towers. So it's basically evaporative cooling. All right. And there's big fans here and then filters, membranes that the water gets poured over, and then it cools down to basically ambient temperature. In fact, we can run the system on what we call W32, which is 32 degrees C water. So, if you do your math, you'll find that that's actually pretty warm. Anyway, so as I mentioned, it's the system, at the heart of the system is what we call an APU, which is an accelerated processing unit. Now, if you're familiar with technology, I know some of you are working computers, I know a lot of you don't, but you've probably heard of CPU, central processing units. Those are kind of the standard processors that we have, in this laptop and most of the computers you have. You've probably also heard of GPUs or graphics processing units. They're powering most of the big AI systems. They also power most of the other large supercomputers. Sierra has a bunch of NVIDIA GPUs. So what is an APU? All right, well, an APU is an innovation from AMD that brings together CPU capability in CCDs or CPU complex dies on the same package as GPU capabilities through these XCDs. All right, and so the processors actually have an IO die that sits at their base, and that acts as a network for the chiplets to allow them to connect to each other and to the high bandwidth memory. And so there's 4 of these IO dies. On one of them, we have 2 of these CCDs, and then, or rather, I'm sorry, 3 of the CCDs. And on the other 3 quadrants, we have 2 of the XCDs. All right, and so the XCDs provide the vast majority of the compute capabilities, roughly 99% of the floating point operation capability. All right, anyway, so that's the processor. Why is that processor important to us? So in traditional GPU-based supercomputers, you have a CPU that kind of acts as the traffic cop, moves data back and forth between all the different processors, and you actually end up with separate memories for the GPU and the CPU. All right. That the problem with that is that then when you want to like compute on something, you need to make sure you move it into the GPU memory. All right. So that costs energy, and it also costs a lot more effort in terms of programming the system. So with an APU, so we've come up with software ways and some hardware support to make this work a little bit better, but you still have to have basically 2 copies of your data. All right. With an APU, you're actually accessing the same memory, so you eliminate all that copying of data back and forth. You save a lot of energy, and you basically make it a lot easier to structure the computation because you don't have to worry about moving it from one location to another in order to continue with the computation. Anyway, so this is what we call a compute blade. So we take, how do we go from an APU to a exascale computer with a 2.79 capability, exaflop capability? All right, well, first of all, we bring those into nodes and then put those on blades and put those into cabinets. All right, so that row in the picture of El Capitan actually has 9 cabinets and 3 cooling distribution units. And then we have 87 cabinets total in the system. So you take 64 of these blades, those form the compute nodes in a compute cabinet. All right, so you actually end up with 128 compute nodes, because this is actually 2 compute nodes split there. And in each of these compute nodes, we have 4 APUs. You can see 2 of them here with the cold plates on them. 2 others are underneath these. This is where the network interface cards live. So anyway, that's what a node looks like. An important thing to realize is, so I kind of indicated that it's all water cooled, and well, all liquid cooled. And that's important because it really does a much better job of removing the very large amount of heat that we do. Each of those cabinets that I mentioned is a 400 kilowatt cabinet. That's a lot of power in one part of the, in one small area, basically the size of a closet. Anyhow, so I mentioned the Rabbit modules. These are also important and also make the overall system much more energy efficient. So what is a Rabbit? It's a bunch of what I'll refer, they're NVMe drives. You can think of them as solid state drives. So kind of like flash drives that you use these days all over the place. We have 18 of those. They're then mounted on underneath here a board that you can't see that connects those together and connects them to this board at the top here, which is a processor blade that allows us to then connect these to the network. But in addition, they have connectivity to compute nodes through over the PCIe, which is a peripheral bus. In fact, we use them even in our laptops. And that's important because it allows us to access that storage directly from the compute node. So these cabinets are such that you have the compute nodes on one side, and then you have switch blades on the other side. So it's a very efficient design. But only half of the slots for switch blades are actually populated with switches in El Capitan, and the other half of the slots are populated with routes. I'm going to go ahead and just skip this. I kind of already mentioned this, that we're running our system software. The big thing about this is it makes it much more efficient for our center to operate it, because all of I mentioned the commodity technology systems, all of them run TOS. And so our operations teams and our system admins are all used to running that software. And so they didn't have to learn a new software stack in order to site the system. These are the numbers. I'm not going to try and go into all the numbers, but I did want to point out that under the El Capitan contract, we actually deployed a couple other systems. El Dorado is at the Sandia site in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's actually number 20 on the top 500. And then we have another unclassified system at the lab. It's actually been there for about a year now. It was there. It was the first cabinet that we delivered, and that's RZ Adams. And that's actually one cabinet is number 49 on the top 5. So 128 nodes is one of the 50 fastest computers in the world. And so in conclusion, I'll just say that I mentioned that the system is very energy efficient. There's another list that's based on the same benchmark as the top 500 called the Green 500, and it basically measures how much computation did you get for unit energy. And RZ Adams is number 10 on that list. Xiaomi is number 12. LCAP is number 18. The fact that there's such a disparity is actually a little bit of a problem with the metric that they use, but it's still a reasonable metric. And so it's one of the world's most energy efficient systems, in addition to being the world's most capable. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Over here. How will this computer system improve our society?
Yeah. How much time do you have?
Me too.
Well, so El Capitan will be used for a variety of purposes, but primarily as part of the stockpile stewardship program. All right, so it will be primarily used to certify the nation's nuclear stockpile, which is our process by which scientists at the lab certify that our nuclear weapons are safe and reliable. And so basically, as those weapons have aged, we want to be sure that if we ever need to use them, they'll work the way they're supposed to, but more importantly, that they don't go off when we don't want them. So,
That's pretty important.
I like to think.
Over here, you got the mic over here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Brian. Great presentation. I'm one of the geeks in the room. So I actually got to tour your facility and see Sierra. So I got 2 questions. What did you do with Sierra? And can we have it as surplus in Pleasanton?
Well, first of all, it's a classified system. So in answer to your second question, no. When we retire the system, we'll end up shredding it. As yet, it's still in operation. So I mentioned that we did the ECFM project in order to significantly upgrade the power that we can deliver to the floor. Sierra is still in operation, and that's about an 11 megawatt system. So without the project, we wouldn't be able to power it. We're expecting to probably retire the system sometime this year, probably towards the end of the year. It's getting fairly old at this point. And basically, it's very difficult to get replacement parts for it. So our computer manufacturers design the systems so that they'll wear out. No, in reality, when you're moving electrons through metal at high rates, it does generate a lot of heat. Eventually, parts do degrade, and so eventually you need to replace them. Sierra's getting kind of old in the tooth, and we're reaching a point where the best thing to do is to retire.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. Yeah, granted, nuclear is an important part of national security, but so is cybersecurity. And I understand correctly, there's no computer on the planet that can break like the AES 256 standard, but the older AES 128 is breakable. I was kind of curious if Lawrence Livermore is going to enter like quantum computing era at some point.
So we have people who are actively looking at quantum computing. I do talk with them. There are some other interesting technologies based on laser interference that I think are and some traditional cryogenic computing. So if you know anything about quantum computing, you have to like almost all the devices operate at like close to 0 Kelvin. So to answer your question, yes, we're looking at it. In my opinion, we're at least 20 years away from it really being practical. I know you hear in the news all the time that it's coming sooner, maybe, but you know, one of the things that's often missed is that computing is so quantum computers are really good at optimization problems. So solving, you know, like decrypting something is kind of an optimization problem in its own right. They're not good at basically anything else. So you need a bunch of capability to do stuff around them, even once they actually get delivered. So systems like this will probably never go away.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have a couple of quick questions. One is, so you have 2 of the top 10. I'm just curious where the other 8 reside. And the second question is, who decides who gets to use the bandwidth on the new computer? Like, what's the process for securing time on the computer?
All right, so first question, the number 2 on the top 500, the previous number 1, is a system at Oak Ridge National Laboratory called Frontier. It has similar technology, but the previous generation of AMD GPUs and also a previous generation of their CPUs. It was also built by HPE. It's got the same kind of cabinets, a lot of similarities. We're about, trying to remember the numbers, roughly 25% faster than that system. So we made a pretty good jump forward from that. Number 3 is another system built by HPE along with Intel. And that's at Argonne National Laboratory. Number 4 is a system called Fugaku in Japan. And number 5. Oh, it's 7. Okay.
So trying to remember who they're not all in the United States though, right? That's why.
No, but many of them are. There are a couple Chinese systems on the top 500. Years ago, China was very aggressively pursuing getting on the top 500, and then a bunch of export control restrictions got slapped on them and precluded U.S. computer processors being shipped to China because basically what we thought they were probably using them for. We won't go into that, but as a result, China has stopped submitting to the top 500. So there's potentially other systems that aren't on the top 500. Also, you hear a lot about fast AI-based systems. Those are also generally not on the top 500 because they're not designed to do. So these flops are double precision. They're more designed to do single precision. Lots of caveats, but they're all over the world.
Yes, number 5 is in Italy. HP has 7.
One more question.
One more question, but we're gonna go overtime, but we'll do that.
And I'm happy to stay around and chat for a little while if anybody wants to ask questions offline.
How do we verify the testing of other nations' nuclear stockpiles?
Good question.
How do we verify?
How do we verify?
I'm not the person to answer that question. Sorry, I'll have to just decline it. I build good computers. I don't do that.
I think Lee had one more question, and that'll be the last.
Computer is energy intensive and energy efficient,
What is the mean time to failure, or estimated mean time to failure and the mean time to repair?
That's a complicated question, but, so, right, like. I think. Well, so we're still in, so it sounds like you got some familiarity with computer systems based on the way you phrased your question. You may be familiar with something we call a bathtub curve. All right, and that is in the early life of a system, you tend to have a relatively high rate of failures. And eventually, yes, you get down to where you're at what the expected long-term rate is. And then as the system gets old and you've heated up the wires enough, it goes back to going up, and then you retire the system as a result. Right now, we're coming far down on that bathtub curve, but we're not all the way down it yet, so I won't try and go into where we stand right now. The long-term expectation is about failure about once every 12 hours, and that's a failure that actually it isn't something that can be recovered by in software or retransmission or things like that. But that doesn't mean that the whole computer comes down. It means a part of the system has to be like taken down and replaced. It's designed so that most of the computer can be hot swapped. I don't know. I think that answered your question.
We only have one question.
Thank you. Okay, we have an opportunity drawing. It's coming. Runs. You need to choose our ticket.
Oh, all right.
There's no money left.
$25.
You know how many diapers that would buy? By when I'm gonna buy diapers.
All right, last three numbers, 426.
What?
426.
426.
Yes.
Yes.
There you go. I guess it will buy diapers.
Diapers, okay. Maybe.
And
If I couldn't pick the right one with only 3 left. I know. Oh, wow, losers.
all right.
Yes, I'll take your diaper money.
All right. The next number is 424.
That's me too, probably.
It almost sounds like the same.
Yeah, that's me again.
Well, it was your lucky day.
We'll see.
Well, Roger and I split, and there was only 3 left, and we didn't win. Oh my God. Woo, it's not funny. It had like 200 something else.
Congratulations, Sherry. More diapers, more diapers. All right. This meeting is adjourned.